This long-term trend presumably should have raised the alarms long time before 2009. It is also notable that according to Eurostat, Greece never met the 3% deficit yardstick. The second failure, the failure of Eurozone's governance, as Professor Nikas and Professor Sklias mentioned before. First, the EMU has allowed the accession of countries with excessive debt well above the 60% of the GDP and budget deficits close to or actually above, because of the creative accounting, the limit of 3%. Therefore, countries that were highly vulnerable to debt crisis were included in the Eurozone. The second problem, the second aspect of the problem. Because of the competitive risks, the EU membership should also have depended on convergence criteria of the real economy. For example, productivity, innovation, economic environment, administrative performance, and competitiveness. In this way, premature inclusion in the competitive environment of the EMU of unprepared national economic systems could have been avoided. Unfortunately, however, Greece joined the EMU only on the basis of nominal economic criteria. The third failure. We have the failure of predictions of rating agencies. The analysis of rating agencies highlights that they are not giving a concrete picture of the national economies. According to Fitch Ratings, which is the same rating agency that announced that Greece has upgraded to the international markets, the valuation of Greek economy was around A. Even Greece had structural macroeconomic problems the previous decade. Here is the evaluation of the Greek economy according to Fitch Ratings rating agency from October of 2002 until October of 2009. The valuation was around A. So the rating agencies are not saying most of the times the truth. Four, the failure of political and institutional development, as also Professor Sklias mentioned before. What are the most important characteristics of the Greek unique political, economic, and institutional model of development that are the root causes for the crisis? The development of status during the 1980s and 1990s, poor governance performance, powerful interest groups and syndicates, populism, failed Europeanization, corruption, political stability, the absence of political stability, and parliamentary continuity. Here it is a timeline of the international economic crisis. We can see the causes of the international economic crisis at 2007. At 2009, we have the fundamental macroeconomic statistics, the government debt and the deficit. At 2010, before 3 years, at April of 2010, Greece entered economic adjustment program, and we are here. We have an augmentation of government debt, and we have a reduction of public deficit to 10%. The fifth failure. We have the failure of fiscal adjustment program. We have a total negative picture for the main macroeconomic indicators after the enforcement of the fiscal adjustment program. According to the data of Bank of Greece, the adjustment program had negative effects to deposits of Greek citizens and enterprises. We can also note the reduction of foreign direct investments according to Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development after the enforcement of the adjustment program. Here is the picture about the macroeconomic fundamentals. You can see the GDP at market prices at 2008 and the GDP at the end of 2012 according to Eurostat. We can see also the GDP per capita. We have at 2002, 90, and at 2011, 79. You can see also the unemployment rate. It was at 10.3, and according to the last data, at the first quarter of 2013, is 27.2. We have the picture about people at risk of poverty, which is not so worst as we could someone believe. And we have also the real GDP growth rate that is negative from 2008 until today, as we all know. Here is the banking sector. the deposits. From December of 2002 until December 2009, we had an augmentation of the deposits to Greek banks according to the data of Bank of Greece. After the entrance to the adjustment program, we have a reduction of the deposits, and we are here at December 2012 according to the last announced data. We have a huge reduction of Greek deposits. Here are the inward and outward foreign direct investments according to Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. We had a reduction for 2010 of the FDIs, mainly because of the crisis. Which are the conclusions? Greece followed a mixture of failed macroeconomic policies. There were so many mistakes, so little time. The enforcement of any macroeconomic policy should take into consideration the implications to the fundamental economic indicators. Otherwise, Greece will continue following a negative macroeconomic course. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Sklias, for your presentation. We had a broad and full image of the reasons why we were driven to the crisis. I think we take his spot as well. And when you were presenting the reasons why, I remembered, and we have commented here, that almost no country was fulfilling the Maastricht criteria. I remember I was following from very close the negotiations for the Maastricht Treaty, and I just said Germany was not fulfilling the criteria, and Professor Nikas said it was only Luxembourg. The joke then it was only Luxembourg and Cyprus at that time. Nobody else. So yeah, it was a politically motivated program, the EMU, the Monetary Union. Because it was never economic, although the E stands not for European, but for economic. Now, I'm giving the floor to Vasilis Vlachos, who is going to present a paper that he's been working with Aris Vigenis. Aris Vigenis is here, but is taking care of the conference overall. And therefore, I'll give the floor to Vasily to present their paper. Vasily, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I will be very brief, as I will be presenting realization from work that is still in progress. I'm Vasilis Vlachos. Professor Vigenis is not with us, but I think he will be soon. What I want to put forward is that a successful absorption of a part of the underground economy by the formal economy, for Greece always, I'm talking about Greece, is the only pragmatic scenario which depends solely on domestic institutions and not to other EU member states, can increase government revenue without any further recessionary impact, can boost tax morale, which is very low in Greece, particularly low, and can ultimately lead to possible tax reliefs in the future. Now, I'm talking about corruption, the shadow economy, and the Greek debt crisis. These are interlinked. How they are interlinked, we will see in a moment. First of all, about corruption, we can always turn to the CPI scores just to get a clue about indicators. If we look in 2012, the latest available, we will see that Greece has a 3.6 score, which is very low, and is 94th. It is really low for an advanced economy, and particularly in the Eurozone. Back to 2009, which was, according to Eurostat statistics, the first year of GDP downturn in PPS standards. It was approximately the same, and way back before the crisis in 2006, when this was the year of the highest GDP BPS, it was, the picture was a little bit better, but it was also particularly low for an advanced economy. What about corruption in Greece? Poor CPI ranking for a developed economy, as I have already stated. The public sector suffers from substantial identity gaps. These are referenced in the corruption perception organization, the corruption transparency organization actually, and a poor system of tax inspections, which allows individuals and companies to continue their tax evasion activity. Now, what about the Greek underground economy? Now, these are some figures from a work that is still in progress by me, Professor Bigenis, Professor Snyder. Professor Snyder is also known for a particular technique, macro technique he uses to quantify the size of the shadow economy, or the underground economy, as it is referred to here. We can see that in 2003, 1 year after the circulation of the euro, it was about 28.2% of GDP, and in 2011 it's about 4 points down. If we look at the ranking in terms of the EU 27, we can see that from 2008 and onwards, we are always in the same place, except from 2010, we are 8th. This is particularly low in the EU. We are 4th in the euro area in 2011, behind Estonia, Cyprus, and Malta. Just to get some figures which always have the element of a mistake. There could be a fall, but this element with this technique that we are using is very small. So what we're talking about is for 24% approximately in 2011, which would be a right issue from a macro perspective. Okay, we look at the Greek underground economy, we can see that there have been studies in the past. Professor Snyder also has provided estimates with the same technique, but not as enriched, I mean in terms of variables in the past. We can see that it was 26.5% in 2007. There were further other tests in the past. We go from 2007, which is also an accepted technique to date, but it was not so overwhelmingly accepted by the academia. And if we go further back in the past, we can see other techniques which are either obsolete today or they are not used because there can be better microeconomic tools. For example, most of them from 2001 and further in the past, they relied on the currency demand approach. We can see that the only figure which was lower than 20% is in 1991. But this again refers to 3 decades ago. So if we look at the Greek underground economy in terms of determinants, from a macro perspective always, the most important determinant is an increase on taxes and social security contribution, something that is happening today. The second is the tax morale, is the sense that every civilian has about where her money are going and how the resources, the public resources are used. And of course the quality of state institutions, which is also interlinked with tax morale. By taking a look at the Greek sovereign debt crisis, as you already heard previously in the presentation right before me, you can see that in the end of 2009, the beginning of 2010, in the May of 2010 that we have ended this memorandum, but we are still in agreement with the EU and the IMF, we can see that in this text that you are reading on this screen, you can find it in, I would say, most of the literature about the Greek debt crisis. So you can see it's not only the figures that you have a bad fiscal policy or anything else. You can read something like economic scandals, you can read about high corruption, you can read about sad economic rates, bureaucratic procedures, which is a great obstacle still today. And we are in a depression for these reasons since 2009, as I stated. Now, one great realization is that the literature indicates that the factors that were responsible for the extraordinary pre-crisis euro area growth, performance of the Greek economy, are also responsible for the Greek sovereign debt crisis. If we look now, which are these reasons? The control of product services